So I put out a question yesterday asking what is the most iconic Australian hip hop song of all time? And I had a ton of answers across Instagram and YouTube. And I just want to go through some of the most popular picks from this list and yeah, that isn't a real thing, Chaz. But all right, we're here. By the way, I am working on the soundproofing for this room. I know the audio is not great, and this is the best we can get it. We're working on it. First track we are going to go over today is Brad Strutt's Monopoly. This is a huge record, especially for Melbourne heads. This is probably Brad Strutt's most iconic song ever. And yeah, man, this did a lot and meant a lot to people from what I understand. I've heard this track a couple of times. I've reacted to it, whether it was on a live stream or whether it's a standalone video, I don't know. Or maybe one of the throwback episodes I did. Maybe we covered it in there. But yeah, man, like this track here, very iconic from what I understand. The bounce. The bounce on that, just the way they chop up that piano at the start is nice, man.
Rap, my bottle is raised, ready to shatter your days. In coming weeks to get blazed under the streets with tough beats.
And you can understand why it's iconic so very quickly, you know? Whilst everyone's doing this mainstream, all looking like models and looking like glamour, I'm gonna bring that real shit. And I guess you could argue there's people doing the same thing and commenting on the same dynamic till this day. So another reason why it might be so iconic, because it's timeless, you know, it holds a lot of weight even till today. And yeah, that's something that you can stand very strongly on.
Monopoly.
Monopoly. I love it. I love it. He's like, look, it's a board game. At the end of the day, you man are all just the same at it. All the players are turned into the same. Look at what you have done. And I'm calling you out for what I see it as it is. For what you see it as it. Words.
Let him in on this thing called Monopoly. Power hypocrisy, these towers on top of me. It's time to bring it back.
Listen to how smooth he is reeling off these multis, man. Like, this is that real lyrical shit. You know what I'm saying? This is that real rap shit. Like, yeah, if that side of hip hop is for you, I can 100% understand why you picked this. And I suppose, in a lot of ways, despite this coming out many years after Monopoly, this is the kind of rap that Brad Strutt was calling out. But you've got to understand that this style of rap opened up just even the idea of Aussie hip hop artists even being a thing to so many people. Hilltop Hoods is a very polarizing conversation to have, and I'm not the one to go super in depth with it. There will be other people that can hold way more of a valid opinion on it than I can. From what I understand, Hilltop Hoods have done so much over the years, you know, and open up so many doors, particularly in a mainstream light. You know, they broke through and become mainstream, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how you look at it, you know. There are many heads that will say, yeah, going mainstream and losing the element of what real hip-hop is a bad thing, and others may say, no, go and earn your bread, go and showcase, you know, just go and put on for Australia full stop and go and get these big international features. And you know, so there's many arguments that can go back and forth, and this was one of the most popular picks, and so whether you like it or not, it's definitely known by many people. That guitar groove, I love it. So it's iconic, like, and I'm not even the one who grew up with it, even I recognize it. I bet that must go off at a live show, man. Like, I haven't had the pleasure of seeing Hilltop Hoods live, but I know that they did an arena tour, and yeah, they can sell out tens of thousands of tickets. And again, if we're talking iconic to a wide audience, because you know, I have a very mixed audience on this channel. You know, there's some of you that would have only joined and into the whole hip hop thing in the last couple of years. There's others that may have been there from before even the start that are just clicking on this video like, yo, Chaz is even having this discussion. And so we're going to have a variety of opinions, but I guess this would probably stretch out to the widest amount if it was a flat level of equal age groups, equal areas, etc., etc. I understand that's not how audiences work, and I understand that my audience might be geared slightly towards the newer stuff than it will be the older stuff. But yeah, the fact that they're able to sell tens of thousands of tickets still, there's not many other people that can do that at all.
Get drunk and dance like your uncle till I'm all hands like your uncle. I'm kidding.
Cheeky bastards, man. And I guess that played into their appeal. They become the cheeky hip hop guys that, you know, your auntie could also fall in love with as well. And again, whether you like it or not, accessible. Now, speaking of someone who wasn't so accessible, someone who was polarizing for so many reasons and leaned into that image, leaned into that character and said, you know what? If you're not with me, you're against me, and stuck by that super hard throughout their entire journey. Kerser. Specifically, Kerser Is The Sickest. Kerser, for a whole crowd of people, is the icon, you know, and is very is very difficult to argue otherwise with them, because it meant so much to those people, you know. It meant so much to some of you that you had someone that really represented you, whilst the likes of Hilltop Hoods were going off and doing this. Kerser was like, no, but I'm going to be this because this is what we really are, you know, and really represent an Adley kind of culture where pop the collar up as he is in here, you know, wear the Nautica and the fucking caps and the T and really rep that and really live that and really be a part of that, you know, not pretending to be something he's not, just being himself, which at a time, not many people were being themselves from what I understand.
About to spit fucking 16, maybe 32, we'll see.
It's mad because Kerser has come so far since here. And what he's been able to achieve now, I would like to say, and I'm not someone who personally knows Kerser, so I won't speak on behalf of him, but I would like to say he still holds a lot of this person still within him. That's still that core raw energy, that core element of who he is. I would like to say he still has that within him.
Kerser, I'm your boyfriend's favorite, but then they get the shits because their girlfriends play it.
Now, you want to talk about real cheeky? Yeah, Kerser is bold, confident, charismatic. Like, that's who he was. He was this brother had it in abundance.
Don't hate the player, they say hate the game. You're why I hate Aussie rap, so you can take the blame.
And exactly what I was talking about as I introduced him. Like, this is what he stood for. He was like, look, whilst you lot are doing this, I'm going to go and do this. And Brad Strutt kind of had the same perspective as well. And so despite us having the mainstream hits, you had the anti-mainstream kind of narrative going on. And people like Brad Strutt and Kerser were pushing that super hard in their whole image and everything that they kind of stood for.
Slap your little sister down till she gets me drugs. I'm on the best as buzz, a straight breakfast.
Yeah. That was a big part of Kerser's image early doors as well, was his discussion around drug use and alcohol. And then at a certain point in his career went back on that and kind of had to be like, yo, like, don't copy me, motherfuckers. Like, don't do this shit. Like, you know? And so, yeah, he's had a massive roller coaster journey with that, from what I understand too. Yeah, Kerser's been through a lot, man, within his career, and I guess that's why so many people have so much respect for him. And boy, we go back to the mainstream side of things. When we talk about what people consider as barbecue rap, this epitomizes it. Again, from what I understand, this is all information that I'm learning off of you guys, and I would love you guys to give me more context and insight to all of the songs and artists that I'm talking about here. But again, to a large portion of people, this was their introduction to Aussie hip hop as a whole, and this is what they could relate to. This is what they were, you know. there were obviously people from areas and hoods that were more working class, was more housing commission, was something that, you know, that was their lifestyle. There was also just the regular suburban people that just, you know, they weren't from these areas, they weren't living that lifestyle, but their taste of hip hop is this, you know, this is the life that they live. And so it makes sense why this is what relates to certain people. And I understand that if you are of a certain age demographic and from a certain area, that is going to massively dictate what music you were influenced by. It 100% makes sense.
Soon as December starts, grab your parents' credit card and hope that you don't get in last. Yeah, because if you...
And it's like simple little things that so many people probably did growing up, kind of thing. And then again, that's what it probably relates. It relates to a certain amount of people because they're like, yo, I've done this and like I've done that. Like, not everyone's done hard drugs and robberies, and get what I'm saying? So I get why this appeals to a large amount of people, because the average person has done something like steal your parents' cars, you know what I mean? Not everyone has been through the maddest and toughest of times. And so that's where I guess you can weigh up both sides of the argument.
Went on a trip for those summer days. Yeah. Summer days.
This hook is cheesy as fuck. But you know what? I bet you've seen some people sing this from the top of their lungs. I bet you've seen people scream this from the top of their lungs, especially at festivals. Bruv, I'm telling you.
Shit that you lost. I swear I brought my pillows and socks. And dudes are too excited, already sitting there slouching. Yo, it doesn't.
I mean, the video also is very comedic in a lot of ways, showing the funny side of things that happen at these festivals. And I guess that also plays into Aussie culture. Like, compared to UK culture, you man are very laid back. You're a lot more easygoing in that way. So, you know, you have a kind of a lighter sense of humor in a lot of ways as well. And yeah, really represented within this video. Now let's talk about something that I'm way, way more familiar with. Something that I joined my Aussie rap journey in and around the time, not long after this dropped. When Body Bag Media was just the real Titan House at that time, what I personally called the Body Bag Media era of Aussie hip hop, when, you know, a lot of the drive and noise was coming through this platform. So a huge, huge shout out to Bagsy for that. And this has just got to be one of the most iconic freestyles to ever come out of this platform. And so for people who have been around the Aussie hip hop scene for many, many years, for a decade or more, you may not consider this to be the most iconic. That there's a large group of us that joined at this time. So to us, this may be the first thing that comes to mind when we think of Aussie hip hop. And so now age also becomes a thing. We've spoken about demographic and kind of background and how you grow up. But then there's also just sometimes you're just born a little bit later than everyone else, you know? And so, yeah, to a large group of people, this is going to be the one. Got the goons in this.
Racking close from David Jones.
What? That line right there? You can't top that line, bruv. We're going to do another episode where we do the most iconic lyrics of all time. And I'm telling you now, I'm riding for that one. You man, just pick what you want. I'm riding for that. That racking clothes from David Jones. Listen, I cop a session. What is it?
Cop a session, I take it home.
Bruv, well, I said this to someone recently and they're like, that's the most Aussie thing to just do. Racking is like an Aussie slang word anyway. David Jones is obviously Aussie. We don't have that in the UK anyway. Maybe it is elsewhere. I don't know. And then cop a sesh, I take it home. Like it's just you, man. You know what I'm saying? It just is.
I get sick of writing music because the shit I spit so hard the fucking charts won't play it.
Listen, and Husky brought to the table what some people consider as sad boy rap. You know, it was that, well, I'm fucking going through it and like this is my experience in life. And there were a lot of people who clung to that. There's a lot of people that related to that. They're like, rah, I'm going through it as well. Like, rah, this is my lifestyle as well. And so there's a lot of people that really heavily related to the struggles that Husky goes through, you know? And despite that not being considered the average lifestyle or the average person, it was everyday people. And because it's such a deep struggle, because it's such a personal thing that's quite tough to talk about. Let's have it right. It's not very easy to bring up to people some of the subject matter that Husky goes over. To be able to just hear it in music, it makes it way more easy to feel like you relate to someone, or to know that you're not the only one who's gone through that type shit.
Blade in my back and they say that I'm fishing. I'm caught on a hook and the bait was addiction. I'm stuck in these motherfuckers, never listen. I don't give.
Listen, the whole fishing scheme, like Husky has a way with words. He has an unrivaled ability to paint a picture in your mind. And he says so much in so very few words, you know? In 2 lines, it could be a whole talking point. It could be a whole discussion. And, you know, Husky musically has evolved so far since this freestyle, but it is very iconic for a very good reason. Now, you may have been born 30 years ago. You may have been born 20 years ago. You may have been born 14 years ago. But for a large amount of people, 1-4 is their entry point to Australian hip hop music. And despite this being drill, that still comes under the umbrella of hip hop. And this is the entry point for a lot of people. It's also the entry point for a lot of artists that we have now in this scene. And I would understand why maybe some older heads are gonna probably be a little bit mad at this even being included in the video. I feel like it's important because to a large portion of people, as I've said, this is their introduction. And especially on my channel, you know, I was covering the scene before 1-4 came through. So I was able to oversee the entire come up of them. Which I'm actually very grateful for, and it's a big part to play in why I gained some numbers and following, because, you know, I was able to cover this on a regular basis. And so I feel like this is important to many people, because I know people that are like late 20s, early 30s that were like, I didn't even know Aussie hip hop was a thing until 1-4, you know, especially within a Polynesian community. And so, yeah. This is huge in its own right for many reasons. Hey, AJ, yeah, my 1-4 veteran, boss on my hood cause I back my section. Listen, man, there's to a whole load of people, that lyric there goes off. And that isn't even the most iconic line of this track. That's another one that we'll have a discussion about. What is the most iconic lyric? Well, you know what? Let's get to that part.
Retaliation is a must. Ain't no maybe ifs or buts.
Took numerous trips around there, but lad, that's something I can't discuss. Man, what a moment, you know? And the fact that they're doing what they're doing, they're filming it outside the courthouse, they're out in the numbers. It was just like an international audience. It was like, raw, Australia even has a hood like that, you know? And I think that's why this is so incredible for what it is, because it put Australia on again, you know? It really did push Australian culture, street culture to the forefront in a modern day, in the modern age, in the modern... Yes, this.
Them big lads, they ain't made for this. We invest in shanks and shivs, and if there's beef, we taking trips. I can't...
You know, and they're talking about gang culture, they're talking about street culture, and they're very unapologetic in how they do it. And that seems to be a theme within one half of this list, you know? Half of this list is, yo, I come from a street background. I come from a hood. These are the things that I've had to do just to survive and get through tough times. And then there's the other side of the list, which is talking to the everyday average citizen, you know? And what would you consider more iconic? What is more important, numbers or depth? You know, I guess it depends on who you are. And I guess the type of people that are going to have this discussion within the community of hip hop. If you're watching this video this deep in, you care about hip hop more than the average person. Let's have it right. And so I understand that the comments under this will be probably one-sided. And I'm pretty sure you're not stupid either. You're going to kind of know which way it's going to lean. But I just would love to imagine if we could get just everyone to talk about it. I don't think it'd be as one-sided as you think. I think to us, we resonate with one side of hip hop way more than another. But I don't know. Can someone word what I'm trying to get at? It'd be interesting to see because not everyone can relate to this lifestyle. But you didn't think I was just gonna end this video without pulling this one out, right? You didn't think I would do that. Get out of here, you silly sausage. Shout out Jack Billy. Hilltop Hoods, the Nosebleed Section. Now, the fact that Hilltop Hoods can have even 2 songs that just dominated the comment section probably says a lot. But this is the oldest track out of all of the ones we've covered. I've gone kind of, and I do say kind of in kind of a chronological order. There you go. I got there in the end. But yeah, this is the oldest one on the list. And yeah, man. No further words needed.
Punk leaders, punks, you can't beat us. We bump and pump meters. We drunk, you chumps need us. So jump with us down the.
So simple, yet so effective. And yeah, it is iconic. It is, yeah, like it shows that you don't always need the craziest production, the craziest video, the craziest concept to make something amazing. Yes, of course it can help. Of course, if you have the opportunity to do so, but it always shows that hip hop runs deeper than just how much money you can throw at this game. And there's an essence that just not everyone can capture when they're making music. Yeah, and the scratches that are about to come in, yeah, it just is just classic hip hop at its finest, you know? That sample there, you could play half a second of it to many, many people and they'll know exactly what song you're talking about.
Lyrics when I wake up, write rhymes to get me through a breakup.
Bitch. Again, these like one thing that is a common factor of all of these songs is they all have an iconic moment or lyric, or they have something that really stands out about it. And when I'm critiquing people like nowadays and people that are getting into this game, I always say sometimes once your fundamentals are there, once your foundations are there and you've got a decent flow, decent lyricism, decent delivery, etc., now where's the X factor? Where's that standout thing about you or the track? What makes you different from the rest? You know, what makes this track different from the rest? That's not like reinventing the wheel, by the way, and right, rhymes about a breakup. Bitch, like it's not. But it's a moment. It's easy to remember. And it's something that everyone can join the fucking with. Who hasn't been through a breakup and wants to scream at the top of their lungs, bitch? Who doesn't, you know? And I think that's something that is massively looked over at times nowadays. And that's perhaps why so many things can sound generic, is because it lacks moments. This video, I spent way more time on this video than I planned on doing, but I hope it's all for a good reason. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be many debates on what the most iconic song of all time is. And I guess that massively depends on who you are and what time you got into hip hop and what background you are from. Like, there's also memories that you connect to certain songs. Maybe you loved one of these songs and are sick of hearing it by now. Maybe you have you met someone and this song connects you to that memory for better or for worse, you know? Everyone has their own individual experience, and I think it would be near impossible to say that one song defines everything. Yes, Nosebleed Section was the most popular choice out of everything. But I think depending on when you got into hip hop and when you got into this scene or even started following it, even in the slightest, um, there's a good chance that you come across one of these songs and one of these songs was your entry point. Mine was a Triple J hip hop cipher, but it was around the time of that happening. So my memories are now attached to that. My memories will be attached to the message because that was a huge part in the growth of my channel afterwards, you know? But when did you get into hip hop, and how close is that to one of your most iconic tracks? Um, Still feel free to let me know what your most iconic track of all time is, and which ones did I miss out of today's video that have to have an honorable mention at the very, very least. All right, just think about it, yeah? If you like work in a morgue or something, when you die, you like have to go back to work the next day, right? Like, even though you're dead, you go back to work. Like, that's fucked up, you know?